This is day 9 of the Karen Read trial. This is part 2. If you missed part 1, go back and watch that. But we are getting into the questioning of Katie McLaughlin. She is a firefighter paramedic for the town of Canton. She grew up in Canton. She went to all the Canton schools. She still works there. She was on shift that night. It was just like a normal night. She was on an engine responding to the 911 call. Brennan has been asking everybody this, but there were all the lights on all of the engines in cars, but there were no sirens. At this point, when she arrives after 6, the lights were, it was snowing and snow was accumulating on the ground. And from the station to the home, it was about a 5 or 6 minute drive. She got the stretcher from the ambulance, and then she was given an order to go and get more information. At that point, she realized Karen Read seemed to be the person that was the most shaken up. So she decided to go over towards her, and Jen McCabe was over there too. She noticed that she was hysterical, thought she was involved. So she started getting John's date of birth and asked if he had any allergies or conditions or took any medications. She says that she was kind of chaotic and running around the scene. She kind of asked if any significant trauma had preceded this, like what happened. And that's when Karen Read said, I hit him. And then a woman told her to calm down. And that woman turned out, she said, was Jen McCabe. And then a police officer overheard it and called their sergeant to come over. And I'm guessing that was Officer Seraph, but I don't know if it's ever said. At that point, she went back to the ambulance where they're working on John O'Keefe, and she told the other EMTs that Karen Read had said that she hit him. She's the one who drove the ambulance to the hospital. When she got the call to 34 Fairview, she didn't recognize the house or who lived there, but now at the time she knows that was Caitlin's house. So Katie McLaughlin testified early in the first trial too, and there was a lot of drama that came out about her relationship to Caitlin Albert after she testified. She said she went to high school with a girl named Caitlin Albert and didn't really allude to the fact that they were friends at all, didn't explain any of it. But she says now she knows Caitlin, same high school, same grade. They have a mutual group of friends, but she doesn't have a one-on-one relationship with her. She's very particular about her words when explaining this. Brennan asks, have you ever talked to her about your role in that night? She says never. And then they play part of the dash cam. This is her over here in the yellow jacket talking to Karen Read and Jen McCabe. But Brennan always plays this dash cam video without any audio. And I'm not really sure why, but we don't know what's going on really. And he just uses it to identify people. Alan Jackson is doing Katie McLaughlin's cross-exam. And he starts off very pleasant, of course. He says, you want to know what happened when you arrived on scene as EMT paramedic that helps you treat the patient. It's important to gather information and relay the info to other people to help. One way is writing it down, correct? And she says no. Yes, one way to get that info is to write it down. In those conditions, you could have said no because it was snowing so heavily, it wouldn't make sense to write anything down. He wants to know who she spoke with ahead of her testimony. She had 3 meetings ahead. She said that it was the DA's office, I think, her witness advocate. I think that was really it. And then at one of the meetings, they did watch her testimony from the first trial. Jackson wants to know if Hank Brennan told her that he was going to bring up the relationship with Caitlin, and she says, yes, he told me. So Jackson wants to bring up the fact that in the last trial, the prosecutors did not bring up the relationship with Caitlin Albert. It was actually just brought up on cross-exam, and it felt like a big bombshell in that moment. She says that she actually had told the prosecutors before the first trial that she had a relationship with Caitlin Albert. She says that she doesn't remember who she told or what, but they knew ahead of it, and she's been receiving harassment since before the first trial with the pictures and everything. But I remember it to be more of everything being published after the first time she testified. So at this point, she's claiming that she heard Karen say, I hit him 4 times. She went back to the ambulance, and she's the one who told Flamati and Nuttall, the other 2 EMTs. And we get into some more relationship questions about her and Caitlin. They've attended baby showers together. They've gone on trips together. There are some photos. Jackson wants to bring up the photos. Brennan objects to all of that. And that's pretty much the end of her questioning. Then we get into Paul Gallagher. He's retired from the Canton Police Department. I forget what his, oh my gosh, lieutenant maybe? I'm really bad. Does it say right there? Lieutenant. There we go. I'm really bad at these police titles, and I really apologize. I don't mean to be bad at all, but he retired in August 2024 from the Canton Police after 32 years. He responded to the scene. He was the highest ranking officer at the scene from the Canton PD. Originally, for some reason, he got the call to go to Meadows Ave, but then he learned it was 34 Fairview. He responded in his own vehicle because he said it was easier, but he did go to Canton PD first to get like his reflective gear because of the weather. He learned that there was an unresponsive male in the snow. He was required to notify, I think it's called CPAC, of the Mass State Police for homicides, and he let them know, and they were going to be on their way. At this point of arrival, John O'Keefe had already been transported to the hospital. So he learned about where the location of his body was found from the other police officers on the scene. There was no other EMTs. I think it was Seraph and one other police officer there. He said the weather was bad, but he started examining the scene. There was no reason to start a criminal investigation yet, and he couldn't hang up crime scene tape or really secure the scene because of the weather. At some point, he did learn that Lank and Good went into the home at Fairview. He didn't know how long they were inside the house or who they were talking to, but he said eventually he started doing his own investigation, and he was looking where John O'Keefe kind of had the medical episode, he says, and the crime scene was starting to get really covered up with snow. He says that the ground was frozen, approximately 4 inches of snow, and Jackson objects. So this has been a big issue with a lot of the pretrial stuff because they didn't test if the ground was frozen or anything, and they're saying that if he hit his head on the frozen ground, that could have knocked him unconscious. They played this video of this lieutenant from the Canton PD with a leaf blower blowing away snow because he saw some drops of blood in the snow, and he is actually the police officer that finds the glass in the snow. So for the glass, it's brought in normal evidence bag and everything brought out in court. There is actually blood at the scene in the snow. He doesn't know if it's frozen or coagulated blood, but it was found, and he decided they may want to collect it. Instead of going back to Canton PD, which is only like a mile away, he uses Solo cups in a Stop and Shop bag that they borrow from the neighbor across the street's house and put it in there. He says that it was brought back to Canton PD and logged and stored. The glass was put into a locker, he believes, in temporary evidence, and it would be transferred to state police on February 1st to a criminalist, which he did. He transferred each of those things to the Mass State Police. He goes back to Canton PD around 8 a.m. and then around 9 a.m. they received a call that Jen McCabe had more info. So him and another officer, Sergeant Link, they go back to the home and interview her. He says he's trained in certain investigation tools to look for deception. They did not separate anyone when interviewing, and it was everyone just kind of in the kitchen area of the home. He didn't look around. He just saw the areas that he in. This was like a joke to me when he was saying this. At that point, he learned the state police were responding to the hospital, so he didn't go to the hospital. This is also the point where Canton PD recuses himself. And they did so because he says, our best detective was Kevin Albert, and he's the brother of homeowner and didn't want any potential bias to be perceived. I'm so sad that I only have a minute left because this cross-exam was wild. Jackson gets into everyone reporting up to him because he's the highest ranking officer for the chain of command. He actually wasn't interviewed ever until April 3rd, 2024. He met with the prosecutors to testify, and that was the first time he officially had an interview for this case. He didn't write any formal reports. He only briefed his superiors. He didn't write any reports because he didn't know it was a homicide, and he didn't take any notes because of the weather. It comes up a lot about the location of John's body because it was reported to him, and he says that he heard it from other people, probably from 3 people, and Gallagher agrees. Jackson says you could have gone back to Canton PD to store the evidence, and he says, weren't you worried about contamination? And he says no. Basically, it would benefit you, and he points at Karen Reed.